Welcome to the Bear Cave. Today, we're going to be talking about the long list of Bears interview requests. So, right now it's at 10. I don't think they've made a formal request to interview Vrabel at this time. Right now, we're seeing at Anthony Weaver, who was the DC for Miami, Mike Kafka, who was the OC for the New York Giants, Drew Petzing, who was the OC for Arizona, who I've heard talks from Arizona Cardinals fans. Oh, maybe they'll fire him. So probably not a great head coach idea. Thomas Brown, who was the interim head coach in Chicago, Arthur Smith, who was the head coach in Atlanta, then went to the OC in Pittsburgh, Brian Flores, the DC in Minnesota, a name that is heavily linked to the Bears, Mike McCarthy, the head coach in Dallas, that is still, I believe, under contract, and he hasn't formally been let go. I think Mike McCarthy is actually probably going to stay in Dallas, but he's another option. The Bears have requested to interview him. Todd Monken, the OC in Baltimore. He was at Georgia for 2 years and then Baltimore for 2 years. Aaron Glenn, the DC in Detroit. Ben Johnson, the DC in Detroit. And, I added Mike Vrabel on here, who was kind of an assistant in Cleveland. He's one of the top names. Let's start our conversation off right here, Dobbs. To you, is Vrabel a lock for New England? Because to me, you don't fire Gerard Mayo unless you know you have a top candidate coming in. Not to say Gerard Mayo is like a good coach, but he's still a guy that was in your organization you only gave 1 year to with a really shitty roster.
No, yeah. Well, I was gonna say, if anything, I saw some tweets. They all kind of have like the same clickbaity headline, kind of like, "Was Gerard Mayo set up?" But I wouldn't say that it was like that was the intention going into the year. But I would say that, like, yeah, he got scapegoated for sure. And that's the thing is, if again to your point, if you know that you have Vrabel almost locked, I would say again, nothing in this league is certain, right? But I would say that we're looking at like a 9 out of 10 shot. If you simulated the offseason 9 out of 10 times in reality, you're going to get Vrabel to the Patriots.
I think that's funny, Dobbs, because with how this coaching search stuff is going, when I was really starting to cope pretty hard. Ben Johnson is a Jaguar. And then once I saw they retain Trent Baalke, I was like, oh my Lord. Like, that is what it's like being a Bears fan. Just the obvious, get rid of him, and you don't. And it probably takes him out of contention for Ben Johnson, which the biggest contention for Ben Johnson is we'll move backwards towards this list. See, I wouldn't like Vrabel. I wouldn't mind Vrabel as the head coach. I'm more of a Ben Johnson or bust type of guy at this point because I think you just have to go try for the home run hire. I can't remember the last time the Bears have tried to do that at the coaching position. And with that being said, Vrabel would be a good guy. He'd be like one of the top candidates on the list. Ben Johnson, to me, is the home run candidate. And right now, he took an interview with New England. Now, do I think New England is a good opportunity for a guy like Ben Johnson? Yes, because I think Drake May is really good. The issue is Elliot Wolf is the GM, kind of. Like, you don't really know the structure over there. The Bears are not a good team, but the Patriots roster is pretty bad. And you'd have to kind of go through a rebuild over there. I don't know if that's something you want to do. To me, right now, the front runner for the Bears job is probably Ben Johnson, just whatever I've been seeing. And when Jacksonville retained Trent Baalke, I was like, oh, it's just the Bears. And then he took the interview with New England. Do you think there's a chance he takes the New England job, or do you think it is just so he can have another team to have leverage with the Chicago Bears? Because he said he wasn't going to go around taking a ton of interviews this time around.
No, I mean, honestly, look, it's funny you bring this up because we haven't even talked about this behind the scenes or anything. But something I have been thinking recently is like honestly, if you're talking about like sneaky situations where you're looking at as a play caller, where you're like, I can see something there. You saw how Drake May looked this rookie year, and you're sitting there and you're like, yeah, like, wait, what they put around him, like, I can see,
it's impressive.
And how young he is. Like, I can see a vision around that. So I do think the Patriots would be sneaky, especially with the history they have as a franchise, the draw that you have from that fan base. I can understand why it would be a draw as a head coach, but at the same time, I think again though, like we've been saying, and this is why I'll get frustrated here as we go on here and we go through more of these candidates. It's like that's what the frustrating thing is, though, Hunter, is because I do view it as like this is the Bears' race to lose,
Yeah.
and they're competing with themselves. It's like that's right. It's kind of how it like it is. So and we'll get into that more, but that's just how it feels right now, right?
No, I mean, I agree, Dobbs. Like that's how I kind of feel like from all the stuff that I have been seeing, whether that's like Pelissero, some of the fucking weird Twitter accounts that I follow that happen to, I think, have information. I don't know if it's actually real, but it all trends towards Ben Johnson. And normally I would I'm a fiend, so I like seeing like any bit of Bears news that is positive because it usually isn't positive. And I think what has really thrown me for a loop is Albert Breer came out, what was it, before the year or the first couple weeks of the year and said Ben Johnson wanted Chicago last year. So to me, that means that he had communicated that to Chicago in a back channel and he's wanted this job for the last couple years. And the thing is, last couple years, the last 2 years. And the thing to me is, if George McCaskey just doesn't screw it up, it just seems like it's going to work. Like, it just seems like it's going to work, but it's always too good to be true sometimes, I feel like, with Bears fans or for the Bears, right? Like, you have the quarterback, supposedly. You have possibly the coach handed to you on a platter because Jacksonville decides they're not going to retain Trent Baalke, or they're going to retain Trent Baalke. I keep screwing that up. People are going to say, oh, well, Poles was retained. Poles and Trent Baalke are not the same guy. Baalke has been in the league for a long time. He's pissed off a lot of people. He ran Harbaugh out of San Francisco. He's been in Shad Khan's pocket for however many years. He has a bad record, 5 years, like not good. Like has not been that great of a GM. Ryan Poles is also like 30, 40. Trent Baalke's older. Like it is a young guy making mistakes. And now are those mistakes okay? No, not at all. I'm not excusing it. But I'm more willing to believe that the young guy will learn from his mistakes than the guy who's been making bad decisions from spot to every different spot he's been. So those situations are different, just objectively, not even on some bias stuff. So I don't really see the retaining Poles as like, I don't see any team really giving up their GM to have Ben Johnson, which is a plus for the Bears.
No, at this point, look, again, at this point, especially, I'm with you on that. I am still discouraged, as I'm sure you are, like we're saying, that look, the bottom line is it's disappointing that the Bears are holding on to Poles again. But like we talked about last night behind the scenes, it was very predictable that this was going to be the news that we were going to wake up to. It wasn't like it took a fortune teller to figure out that the Bears were going to retain Poles. But here's the thing. I'll say it like this, Hunter. Again, to make a comparison out of this. And I think I made this comparison like last week when we were live, but now it's even more apparent because of all the factors we're kind of like we're putting in play here that have come to fruition. Here's the kind of the comparison point for the Bears where they can change the script this year. Because it was kind of like when the news that Juan Soto was potentially going to be a Met. Like at first, every Mets fan was like, oh, like it finally actually lines up. Like we actually finally have the money. We actually finally have a GM that will spend. Maybe that's the thing is that's what the Bears, that's the different contingency that the Bears haven't proven yet. But all the things lined up where it was like, we can actually finally flip the script and actually land a big name free agent. And lo and behold, a bunch of Mets fans were, doubting it, but holding on to hope. And it was like, maybe it just finally will flip the script this year. And that's kind of how it feels with Ben Johnson. You know what I'm saying? Like being a Bear. It's like, if that news finally hits, it's like, wow, like the Bears finally flipped that script. They finally just did the right thing. Even though maybe you feel like you're overspending or however you want to put it, it's like sometimes you just have to do the right thing and shoot for the stars instead of playing it safe. And this is the Bears' year to finally pull the trigger and say, we're doing it. It's that simple. And that's the thing is, Hunter, the Bears' biggest competition is themselves. And you're not in that position a lot of the time. You're really not. Because to your point, keeping Baalke is the biggest head scratcher. That's the thing. Like keeping Poles is bad. But keeping Baalke is like,
it's a different level.
Like y'all just push yourself out of the Ben Johnson race for no reason as a much smaller market. hey, do as you please. But that was the best news the Bears could have gotten.
That's what I wonder. I really do wonder if the Jags were like, what is the realistic chance that you come here? And maybe Ben Johnson didn't give them a percentage that they liked, and they kept Balky because they're like,
way, it's like,
what if,
why?
well,
That's why it's funny.
Either way, it's wrong. I'm just saying, like, that may have been a play where they were like, we'll get rid of him if you come here, but unless we know you're coming here, we're going to keep him. And I think that may have happened. I don't know. But kind of what I want to talk about, like what you were talking about with flipping the script, Dobbs, is the Bears have done that this year. There's been multiple instances where the Bears have done things that they just haven't done. They drafted the obvious number 1 overall pick in the draft. They fired a head coach mid-season. They have been connected to Ben Johnson this whole time. They beat the Packers at home for the first time since 2015. First time beating the Packers since 2018. First time a Bears quarterback has started all 17 or 16 games since 2009. First time a Bears rookie has beaten the Packers since 2005 when Kyle Orton did it. The Bears have, it has not been a good year for the Bears, but the Bears have done a lot of things they haven't done in the past. And to me, that gives me confidence that maybe there is change coming, and that change, because this is my stance with the Ben Johnson thing, Dobbs. And then we'll move on to everyone's favorite Aaron Glenn. But I just feel like even if you get Ben Johnson and it doesn't work, at least you took the swing. That is what I can't get on the board with the Bears, is when they don't do the obvious thing and take the swing. They always are trying to be the smartest guy in the room, and that is what kills me watching them make decisions and watching them make decisions over the last however many years. The fact that they're actually maybe going and getting Ben Johnson and giving him double digit millions to be their coach, that is like crazy for the Chicago Bears.
No, absolutely. Look, I mean, again, when your biggest competition is yourself, there's no excuse not to get it done when you haven't made the obvious play all these years. It adds up, Hunter. He has been the number 1 candidate. With that said, because I'm not going to have a better time to insert it than right here, because again, we're going to get into the other candidates, and it's just never going to be a better time to say it. What does really frustrate me about this, though, is that, again, to me, Hunter, who you would want as your number 2 in this situation would for sure be, you want Joe Brady. Like I said, my contingency plan, I'm saying you want Joe Brady. And you see the teams that are interviewing Joe Brady. Like,
I don't know why Joe Brady or Liam Cohen are on this list right now. Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I don't understand how that we're looking at Drew Petzing, Mike Kafka, Anthony Weaver. Not to disrespect these gentlemen, but Hunter. Like, it's only something you would see the Bears doing. This is that Bears shit, and that's why we get stressed.
That's kind of my point, though. Is the Bears are putting more pressure on themselves not interviewing Liam Cohen or Joe Brady, because Vrabel, I would say 95% chance he is a Patriot. Johnson, if you don't get Johnson, it is not looking good for the candidate.
It's looking like Anthony Weaver. No, I'm trolling. Okay, but am I trolling? Dude, that's why it gets concerning. Like, he's doing his homework, Hunter.
I think my next favorite option, and we can just talk about him now, would be Mike McCarthy. I know it is probably not a popular one, but he's an offensive guy. He'd be calling the plays. His teams have consistently won. Like, whether they've won the big one or not in Dallas, like, he won the big one in Green Bay. He knows the division. And I just think Mike McCarthy can get it done. Like, do I want him? No. but I promise you he would not be the worst of your options if the Bears somehow didn't get Ben Johnson. And I think there's very low chance they get Vrabel.
Well, no, absolutely. I mean, again, I'm with you. That's where it gets frustrating. Back to the Joe Brady thing, because Joe Brady should for sure be on this list and for sure be the number 2
See,
option.
would you rather
But you're
have Joe
already
Brady
out the
or
door on
Liam
that.
Cohen?
Like, no,
Because I would
Liam Cohen.
almost want Liam Cohen, honestly.
But that's the thing, though, Hunter. We've been talking about this for weeks. Being the first ones to get your foot in the door, and if not the first, you better be second or third. Bears aren't that for any of them now. So you know what I'm saying? You're already on the back burner where they're looking at you like, okay, well, I'm the 11th option. You know like way to show the respect, and that's it's concerning because that's like you said, that's why it's Ben Johnson or bust. It didn't have to be Ben Johnson or bust, but the Bears have put themselves, frankly, now in a position where to us, yeah, it's pretty much Ben Johnson or bust.
I just think, although Dobbs, I do agree with you kind of. I do agree with the idea of casting the wide net, but I also do that not to the Bears' fault. I do think after Ben Johnson and Mike Vrabel, the level of candidate kind of falls off. Like that's not the Bears' fault. I don't blame the Bears for casting a wide net, but the reality is if you don't get the top 2 guys, you better hope the guy you pick is right. Because while I like Liam Cohen a lot, the 1-year thing would scare me. It would scare me. We saw Bobby Slovic. Like Bobby Slovic, I think, is getting 1 head coaching interview with the Jets. Like,
you're correct.
I don't
about
know.
That.
Yeah, I don't know. But I mean, Mike McCarthy, in my opinion, Bears fans would not be the worst thing in the world.
No, absolutely not. And again, if you're a Bears fan who's out here thinking it's by far the worst option, I don't think you've taken a long enough look at the list of candidates.
If the Bears hire, and we can just talk about them now. If the Bears hire literally anyone in the first line on my coaching request at the bottom, which I did not mean to line it up like that, you're in trouble, Bears fans. But let's go to Aaron Glenn in Detroit, the next Saints head coach. The Bears have I know you don't want him, but
you're right. That's that. We're looking at the Saints' next head coach. Just wait on it.
Aaron Glenn, I don't get the hype. I don't. Like, he is one of the candidates that people talk about, and I don't understand it. I don't get it. Like, I know this defense has been playing well, right? But just like defenses who play bad at the expense, and I'm not saying this is the whole year, but like when your offense can march down a field efficiently and score at will sometimes, you don't think the defense is playing a little bit looser? You don't think they're in more aggressive positions to make plays because we give one up, it's okay, we'll go score. Like, that's not the reality on a lot of these teams. And I mean, last year, I mean, the Detroit defense wasn't all. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Dobbs. The Detroit defense was not all that, right?
No. That's where this year is more impressive.
That's what I'm
with the depletion. It makes like I get it,
but the depletion wasn't all
like,
there all year. It was just in the middle of the year till now, and they're still playing well. But it's like, think about what they added. It's Aiden Hutchinson was playing like a fucking superstar. You add Zadarius Smith. You add Carlton Davis from the Bucks. Then you go out and draft Terrion Arnold. You have Brian Branch. Like, this defense is loaded. It's not like he's raising up scrubs like he is now. I'm just saying, like, and this is a personal thing, I guess. Why do you think Matt Eberflus was so good? It's because they overinvested in the defense. He had fucking people everywhere. Like, it's not a secret on why he was good. And that is what kind of, I think Aaron Glenn is probably a better leader of the locker room than Matt Eberflus would be. But for the Bears situation right now, it is just a no. Like, you'd be repeating the same thing.
No, and to your point, I think maybe probably we're looking at a better, like, I can't say for sure, but I would lean towards a more commander of respect than Flus.
Yes.
That's why I can understand too why teams I think would be looking at him, and I totally understand it. But I'm with you on a lot of things. I'm going to say, though, like, I don't think he's like a sure bust. I could understand and I could see a situation where it ends up working out where he gets a guy who's really similar to him and has style to run the defense. And then he's just kind of that leader of men role with the really good offensive coordinator. I can see it working out. Like, I'm not like, he's kind of like one of the guys I'm indifferent about. But I'm going to say again, when you're a guy that I'm indifferent about versus a guy that it's him or bust, it's like, it doesn't matter because it's him or but, right? Like, so it's like, you don't want the guy you're indifferent about when you have a guy that you view so much higher on the list.
So just before we move on to our next guy, Benjamin Albright says the Pats know Vrabel is in the bag, and if he had to put down a wager, Aaron Glenn would be the next head coach of the Saints.
Oh, we know this. I'm telling you, I already know. Like, because Hunter, this is the thing. Quick side rant.
He was with the Saints for a little bit, right?
Do. No, that's all the Saints do. I've been saying this for years. Look, as the Saints fan. Look, the truth is, gang. Just quick side. I'm mental trauma dumping on you guys. All the Saints do. Drew Brees and Sean Payton were the Saints, Hunter. Like, I'm saying this so validly. Like, they held up Mickey Loomis for so long. All they know how to do once that Sean and Drew are gone is just keep the same cycle of people that have been in and out of the building. And I'm so tired of it. So let's get back to the Bears so I don't have to keep stressing about the Saints.
I had to let you rant. We've been going Bears. I got to let you get the Saints stuff
I had to get it out. I appreciate everyone. I appreciate y'all listening to my trauma dump because it is just to the point, Hunter. If it was like to the point with the Bears, it's past the point with the Saints. So let's get back into these candidates.
So Todd Monken, who's the OC of Baltimore, I wouldn't hate it, but it would just be one of those. This would be like one of those weird ones where it would just be like, I get it, but like, it's very obvious not the guy that you wanted. This would be like, okay, and this is a bad example, but this would be like the Ben Johnson to Cliff Kingsbury pivot that the Commanders did. Like in a similar fashion where it'd just be like, oh fuck, we liked Todd, but like Johnson's not coming here, so I guess we got to go with him. Like that would be like, out of all the OCs on here, outside of Mike McCarthy, I'd be okay with Monken, but I don't want him, if that makes sense.
No,
I don't know how he can do as a head coach.
Well, that's where, okay, look, and let me just fact check myself.
Because he is an older guy.
I was going to say that's actually the exact number I was going to get.
Oh, wait, Dobbs, let me ask you this real quick. Is his brother the coach at Army?
Let me just check right now.
Because
no, I know his same last name. I'm actually going to fact check that right now. Hold on.
Because I remember whenever I saw him, I was like, I wonder if this is Todd Monken's brother. But with that being said, I mean,
no, it says his brother's name is, no, wait, he's the cousin. Okay, that's his cousin.
Okay. So football family.
Yeah, no, literally.
What for Caleb, I like it. For the future of the Chicago Bears, I don't.
Well, here's what I will say about Todd Monken, right? I understand the appeal of like, but here's my thing. I think he's one of those guys, and again, you can't say it for sure until you give him a chance. So I'm not saying it for sure. I'm saying I would lean towards, though, that he's one of those guys, like, he's just a really good offensive coordinator, but I feel like that's where he's going to be best suited at, given how old he is already. If he was a younger guy, and this sounds bad because it's like, I'm like being bogus to the older dudes, but it's like, it is tough to want to give the keys over to someone where you don't know how much longer they're going to be fully invested, how much longer they're even going to be in the sport when you have a young franchise QB. And that's kind of thing. I'm going to say this. I understand the appeal. Exactly. And that's like, Hunter, I understand the appeal of like, this dude had Stetson Bennett just going fucking nuclear on dudes. And then he comes in, he turns Lamar into what should be, you could argue, I get it. I'm not even on one side of the argument. Whether it's Josh Allen or Lamar, I'm happy either way. I think they both deserve it. But who very well could be, I'll say, a back-to-back MVP. Like, I understand why you're saying like, oh yeah, like he can come and completely change our offense. But again, as we always say, it's so much different when you go from having just one key to all three keys, the offense, defense, and special teams, and you don't just have your hand in one door or your foot in one door as you do with just being a coordinator. And with his age, I think it's just you throw a lot of things in that pot, and there's more risk than there is potential, right? There is reward potentially, but I feel like there's more risk. So again, it's kind of like Aaron Glenn, where I'm indifferent in terms of like it's far from the worst case scenario, but it's
not ideal.
I sound like a broken record, but he's not Ben Johnson, you know.
No. That's essentially what this whole podcast is. It's not, but they're not Ben Johnson.
It's essentially the Ben Johnson fan club until we get the news.
Quick side note, Dobbs, because I was thinking about this the other day, and I found it pretty funny when you were talking about like Lamar being MVP. Do you remember when Lamar and the Ravens were negotiating for contracts, and they said he could seek a trade, and no team offered them?
Oh, I remember sitting there seeing the Saints
MVP
not making
player,
offers.
But people were shelling out for Deshaun Watson. That is crazy to me looking back on that. Like, you're telling me the Falcons wouldn't have benefited from that?
You tell me any
the Falcons could have done without Kyle Pitts, I'll tell you that.
You actually could have dropped Lamar on any team and they would have. I'm not even saying this like they got some gassing. Like, there's very few players where you can just actually hand pick like where you want to drop them and they'll be a playoff team. I would say Lamar's one of like 4 players where you actually are insta at least wild card, last seed. Just drop him in any situation. He's going to Superman it. That it is crazy. But it just, like we always say, Hunter, it's the bar has never been lower for the GMs and the coaches of the league. The bar has never been lower.
Let's move into probably the next favorite for the Bears. And then we got one more on this line, and then we'll go through the first line quickly because none of them should be real considerations, honestly.
First line is crazy. I have a lot to say on one of them.
Brian Flores, who's the DC for Minnesota. Now, this name has been heavily linked to the Bears because of Warren's ties with Minnesota. He was Ryan Poles' teammate at Boston College, where Ben Johnson also was at. And they've yielded strong reviews. Regardless of his growth and regardless of how good his defense is, what happened with Tua Tagovailoa, there is zero chance you can hire him. Because I think personally, he'll probably be a good coach. But if you bring him in and he does the same shit that he was doing with Tua and you knew that's what he did in the past, the Bears would probably never be able to rid that stink from their organization, from how bad that situation would be, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, this is directly correlates to how the bar has never been lower, because I'm with you. Look, in the right situation, this is not to discredit Brian Flores. Like, I do think in the right situation for him and the other team, he could end up being a really good fit for a team where he could actually be that, it's high comparisons, because I'm not saying he's either of them, but that Rich is rare nowadays where you could be that Belichick, Tomlin, defensive absolute lock for your team, but also that commander of respect where both coordinators have to hold their weight. Again, that's the ceiling. I am fully aware. I'm not saying he's either of them. Far from it, obviously. He has a lot to prove to even get close to them. It'd be in the same conversation. But I'm saying I could understand him getting to that ceiling and how teams could see that. But to your point, Hunter, it's like if the Bears were to I honestly think of all the hires for the Bears personally, this would for sure be the worst one because of the Tua thing. And here's the thing too, Hunter. Again, whether you want to say this is a good or bad thing, that's up to subjectivity. But I don't think someone who's already 43 years old, who clearly has a philosophy on how to develop somebody, is going to change that out of nowhere in their mid 40s, right? Like Brian Flores didn't just look in the mirror and was like, "I was too hard on."
They also went through 4 OCs in Miami.
That's a great point. Well, so that's kind of the thing, Hunter, is he clearly has a way he wants to do things, and he's very cutthroat with how he's going to approach having that go. He's not going to change that. And again, that's subjective whether you think that's right. That's up to you. How you want to coach someone, that's totally fine. There's different ways to do things. But for the way that it's going in Chicago right now, for all you've invested in Caleb, I don't think it's worth putting it on the line for somebody who very, very clearly has a high chance for volatility in that situation. It just really wouldn't, right? It just would make no sense. So it's funny we're even discussing it. It's actually just that
It's
Bears
funny
shit,
how
Hunter.
much it is discussed, but I also do think, okay, I'm gonna tinfoil hat conspiracy theory this whole thing. Well, it's really not a conspiracy theory. This probably actually happens. The Bears are heavily linking themselves to Brian Flores. I don't think he's a real consideration. Just like I don't think Ben Johnson is really considering going to New England. I think the reality is to both have leverage at the table, both of them need people that they can say they're attaching themselves to. That is what I think this is. Could be very wrong and very upset, honestly, but that is just my guess in terms of basic negotiating. Because imagine he doesn't take the New England job and he wasn't going to Jacksonville. Sure, Ben Johnson can say, I'm going back to Detroit. But at the end of the day, there's never going to be the perfect situation. And teams are eventually going to be like, okay, is this guy going to take the job or not? And it'll eventually hurt him. And I think he could probably do it one more year. Like, I think he could get away with it this year. But next year, if he were to do it, I don't know if a team would touch him.
No, I look, I hear you on that. I definitely do. And you know what? Let's just hope for the sake of Caleb's development here, Hunter, that you're right.
I think so. For the sake of Caleb's development, let's not hire Arthur Smith, who was another head coach interview. He wouldn't be the worst. He was the head coach in Atlanta. I believe he went 7-10 for 3 years straight, even though he had increased talent every year. He's the OC in Pittsburgh. I mean, the offense isn't like the issue I have with Arthur Smith is not necessarily his football mind, but he's kind of like Nagy, where, all right, we just got 3 first downs in a row. We're rolling. Let's run a triple reverse and kill the drive. Like, that is what Arthur Smith does. And
That's a perfect analogy.
I watched it for years and I can't go back to it. He's just too far inconsistent. I don't know if he's ready to be a head coach again personally. Like, yeah, I say personally for my apartment. You know what I'm saying? But like I think these younger guys who have the young head coach tenures go be an OC for a couple years and then come back are far better equipped. Like, I don't think Cliff would be smart to take a head coach job this year. And I haven't seen anyone request it. I think he'll probably stick around for next year or the year after. And I think what Ben Johnson is doing is kind of ringing true to a lot of these guys who take jobs young, get screwed, and then they have to wait forever. It's better just to be selective, because if you're good and meant to be in that position, you'll eventually get there.
No, you're spot on with that. I think, again, with Arthur Smith, I'll say comparative to some other guys, like I can even see that, yeah, maybe in the right situation, he's right to be a head coach. But look, again, personally, I'm just not the biggest fan of his scheme anyways. Like you're kind of like you're saying. I mean, there's a lot of things. Look, I watched the squad play him 2 times a year, like you're saying, for 3 years. I mean, they were never like, oh, Art Smith's coming to town. We better hunker down. Like, I'm just saying from a personal perspective, look, I'm not going to be if I was the guy hiring, I wouldn't be the guy hiring him. I'll just leave it at that, because honestly, on Art Smith, I don't have a lot to say other than it's like, I understand that you're like, oh, well, he raised the floor of Justin Fields and he raised the floor of Russ. But it's like, is that really Art Smith, or is it the fact that the Steelers defense like goes absolutely hard 4 out of 5 games and they have a ton of possessions? You know what I'm saying, Hunter? Like, that's kind of what I guess I would ask.
Raising the floor of a 36, 37-year-old Russell Wilson. I mean, honestly, it's admirable what he did with Desmond Ridder in Atlanta, but I just stay away from Chicago. No. So, Dobbs, who do you want to start with on line 1 that we can get through the quickest?
Oh, the quickest? Thomas Brown. No disrespect, Thomas, but
Oh,
I
interesting.
think
I was actually going to say Thomas Brown's the guy I could spend the most time on because to
see, I
me,
just
let's talk about him. Let's
all
talk
right,
about him.
let's talk about it. All right.
To me, Thomas Brown is out of the first line the most likely hire. Like, I think the Bears value him being with Caleb. I think they value that. And I don't think Petzing, Kafka, or Weaver has shown anything that shows that they deserve to be a head coach at this level. Now, do I think Thomas Brown deserves to? No. But I believe out of these four guys, okay, he is going to have, I don't want to say the best chance because I think going 1-4 really killed your chances. But beating the Packers
In a
was not
very
a small
ugly
feat.
way, too. I was gonna say in a very ugly way, it was 1-4.
Yeah.
Like it,
I don't know. I mean, I think Thomas Brown will not be the head coach of Chicago Bears. I think he needs to be the OC somewhere for a couple years, and then he'll have a chance. But I do think this experience in Chicago and in Carolina will help him a lot down the road.
No, I think one thing we can for sure agree on is that. I mean, and again, my viewpoint is significantly different than yours. Whereas I'm gonna be honest with you, Hunter, because I'm an honest guy. I think it's more of a respect interview where I do think in the back of
Yeah,
their
it is.
minds that they're really not considering him. And it's kind of like if we were to make this hire, honestly, the backlash would be very loud. Number one. Number two, we've already clearly seen he's in over his head. And I don't blame him. Again, it's a big jump that he made. Yes, he is a Super Bowl champion assistant coach, but I think we can see just from what with our own eyes that the jump to head coach, he's just right, at
He's
least
not
for the
ready.
Bears, he's not ready for that. And that's okay. And that's they're giving him the respect he deserves. But I just think as far as optically, I do think it's one of the worst ones optically. If you were
It would be
to
bad.
have this net and then come out with Thomas
And you
Brown
come
after
with
what we
Thomas
just
Brown, that'd be bad.
right, like that would be like to me personally, at least maybe Petzing, Kafka, Weaver, you get like that element of surprise, like, oh shit, like, wait,
That's
this guy
fair.
actually is really good. Versus like with Thomas Brown, I don't think there's really that. It's kind of like that would be like, I think next to Flores, that would be like the one where it's like, whoa, like these guys are serious right now.
I think my thing with Brown is he would be running obviously a different offense, and that's going to be the case with whoever comes in. But it's just kind of like when he came to head coach, the offense dropped off quite a bit. And I'm not saying that. I just think like if we would have saw the same offensive output and we would have saw maybe 2 wins and you went to head coach, when you went to head coach, like then I could buy like a little bit of hype. Not saying I'd want it, but I could buy what they're selling. I just can't. When you got into the bigger seat, you weren't as good. So,
No, and I'll say this out of respect before we move on. I think if I was to make a prediction, Hunter, I think he will go get an offensive coordinating job somewhere else and do a pretty good job. I think that if you were to ask me like what I end up predicting, I think that's the most likely outcome for everybody involved.
Moving on to Drew Petzing, the OC in Carolina, Arizona. I don't know. His name has gotten talked about early this year, like a guy to watch out for. I don't get it. Like he's another
No, you and
one
me
where
both.
I don't understand the hype. If the Bears hired this guy, we're lost. Like you might as well ship off Caleb Williams. We're lost if we get Drew Petzing.
I think Hunter, I think they only watched the Cardinals play the Rams this year the first week. I think they just made up their mind after that only because no, to your point, look, I mean, this number one, I mean, let's be clear. It's not like the Cardinals offense is a world beating offense. They're not. But at the same time, you have Kyler Murray. He has absolutely nowhere turned Kyler back into like old seal. Because the thing is, I don't want to say we've seen Kyler at his ceiling, but as far as the sample size that we have of Kyler's career, as for right now, as funny as it is, and it turns out, his ceiling was with Cliff Kingsbury. Funny how the fate twists things sometimes. But you see what I'm saying here, Hunters? It's like if you're not even bringing him close to back to what Cliff was doing with him, it's kind of like, what are we doing? And you think because Kyler's not like a world beater either, but I think he's shown us that he can play at a really high level for at least a period of time. If you can't even bring him back to that point, what makes anybody think he's going to take Caleb to the level that he is supposed to take him to? I think it's pretty simple.
one team over 500 this year, and the other, well, two teams technically, but they beat up on the Rams week 2. Where they're injured. I don't know. Drew Petzing, no, Chicago. Mike Kafka. I don't know if there's a hire I'd like worse outside of him or Anthony Weaver. We'll get to him finally, but why? Like, why?
This is that
Like,
smartest guy
why
in the
is
room.
he even? It's just like the Giants look like shit. Dable's calling the plays. I don't understand what Mike Kafka brings at all to Chicago. Oh, he's from Chicagoland. That's why.
I mean, this is I have very few words on this because I'm with you where it's like I don't know. I really don't know what to say because I really don't know what to think. Because if perhaps I could have a discussion with Poles and Warren and kind of like get some insight, maybe I'd have more to say. But I'm with you, Hunter. Whether for better or worse, I have no fucking clue what the direction would be with this. So
No.
let's just say for right now, apparently, they know something very clearly that we don't. And that's really all I can say on this on him because respectfully, right? I don't want to.
But they never actually do know. They can.
I don't
say
know
they
what
know
they
something,
know,
but they never actually know anything. Whatever they're finding out is getting fed through fucking agents and everything that people are telling them that they don't actually know, because they always
watched Drew Lock.
think they know
watched Drew
more.
Lock
Yeah,
knock the
they
Colts
know.
out of the playoffs, and they. I don't. Maybe that was just like the Cardinals. Maybe
The Drew
they
Lock
only
game.
watched Drew Petzing week 2, and then they only watched Mike Kafka week 16. Now that's some real tinfoil hat shit right there, Hunter.
I just am really hoping that it's like Ben Johnson wants to come here. They want Ben Johnson. They make it work. Last candidate, and then we'll stop because this is low-key an egregious amount of names on a list. Anthony Weaver, the DC in Miami. Dobbs, I'm kind of fucking sick because I watched a video with Anthony Weaver, and it is just somebody that the McCaskies would love. And I don't want him whatsoever. First of all, defensive side of the ball, don't want that. I want an offensive head coach that is going to call plays and be consistent with Caleb for years. I mean, the Miami defense was all right. Like, it was good at times.
But were they? I'm literally.
That's what I'm saying. It's like,
well,
you can't even sell me on these guys. You can't sell me on Anthony Weaver. You can't sell me on Mike Kafka. You can't sell me on Drew Petzing. You can't sell me on Arthur Smith. Maybe you could sell me on Todd Monken, but like, you can't sell me on Thomas Brown. Brian Flores, Mike McCarthy, Ben Johnson, Mike Vrabel, Aaron Glenn. Those are 5 names right there. You can't even really sell me on Aaron Glenn, but I understand. You can't even really sell me on Brian Flores, but I understand. Like, half the names on this list, I can't even get behind. Like, I don't understand the logic. And I understand you want to cast a wide net, and I understand a lot of these guys aren't going to make it the first.
But what if, Hunter, what if sometimes this?
But what if they do?
What if you don't need to?
What if they do?
It's like this is. I'm going to make just like a little analogy here, though, because Hunter, here's the problem. The Bears are casting a wide net like they're a fishing community. Let's just say of like a small coastal village. They like really need a bunch of fish to feed the whole village. But the thing is that the Bears aren't that village. The Bears are the village where they need to go trophy hunt one fish, and they already have all the other fish that they need, and they should only be looking for 1 or 2 specific species of fish. So what is the wide net for? Like,
I don't understand. I don't understand.
Like, and this is what I'll say about Anthony Weaver, because this is where actually my opinion differs heavily to yours. And this, I don't mean to make you sick. Trust me, it's just as confusing and sickening to me. But Hunter, again, and no disrespect to the gentleman, I'm sure, again, there's things about him that we don't know that are attracting him to the Bears. But with all that being said, here's the thing, Hunter. And this is really the cherry on top of the why are they casting the net sandwich? It's like you can really already see, at least from my perspective, how that the news has been broke. With all these other head coaching candidates, it's kind of just been like, well, the Bears are interviewing them. But with Anthony Weaver, it was like a string of tweets from different analysts like, yeah, Poles has been like really doing his homework on this guy. You know, the Bears are like really interested in him. And it's like, to me, that's a huge red flag because it's like, why is he getting spotlight? Whereas everyone else besides Ben Johnson, that's the thing. The Bears haven't even like done any of that public with Ben Johnson. We haven't got.
I think there's a lot of
the
back
Bears are
channel stuff
ecstatic
with Ben
to get
Johnson.
Ben Johnson coming in. No, that's true. But like but with Anthony Weaver, it's like, you know,
I think
like
it's all a
the golden boy
negotiating game
candidate. I'm just a
personally.
little confused about that. That's where I'm like, because I'm going to say this, Hunter. This is where it's really concerning. I would say that as of right now, if I was a betting man, just from what we've gathered, and that could be far off base, and I hope I am. Again, no disrespect to the gentleman, but if the Bears whiff somehow on this absolute wiffle ball coming right down the middle on Ben Johnson, I can see the Schefter tweet that Anthony Weaver is the new Chicago Bears head coach. And that's what's so concerning about the situation at hand now.
Well, so that's kind of going to your point. Like, it's like a lot of these guys won't make it past the first interview. But what happens if we see Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn, Brian Flores?
Not even. How about Drew Petzing?
Like we can even Mike Kafka make it to the next interview. It's just like, what the fuck did Mike Kafka say? Like, no way he has your ear like that. Like, there's zero chance he has your ear like that. Like, I don't know. Like, sitting in that room, I'd be like, are you these three names? And if you're not, then get out, because I just can't do it. Like, I can see, like, Dobbs, you're so right. I can see the height, like, breaking with the picture of fucking Drew Petzing from Adam Schefter. He's the next head coach of the Bears. And we're all going to lose our minds, and then we're all going to sell ourselves on it. It's going to be horrible.
No, that's the thing. Anyone listening right now, let it be clear, anyone watching later, if that happens, me and Hunter will not be selling ourselves on it. You will be hearing a generational rant, and hopefully we have to eat crow. But hopefully none of that happens. Hopefully they don't strike out on the literal. There's 3 wiffle balls coming down the middle, Hunter. They only have to hit one of them, and they get Ben Johnson. That's the analogy for the situation. You tell me if they're going to be able to hit one of these wiffle balls, or if they want to. They're intentionally striking. Are they going to intentionally strike themselves out, Hunter? I don't know.
But okay, last question, and then we'll end it. Anthony Weaver, Mike Kafka, Drew Petzing, Thomas Brown. Gun to your head, who's your next head coach for the Chicago Bears? Who do you pick to lead them if it's one of those 4?
Wait. Who's the? I'm sorry. I thought
you have to pick. You have to pick the next head coach of the Chicago Bears, and you get Anthony Weaver, Mike Kafka, Drew Petzing, or Thomas Brown. Who is your choice?
Hunter, dare I say at that point it has to be Anthony Weaver. That's what's even crazier about the situation.
Oh no, dude! I think I might.
You know what? You know what? Maybe we just say balls to the wall. We're hoping Mike Kafka's the biggest surprise of history if that happens.
He's week 2 and week 1 Clint Kubiak.
Maybe that would be That's a whole other situation with it. We got to deal with down there in NOLA. Lord have mercy. But I think at least things are looking up in Chicago, barring that they don't strike out on wiffle balls.
Well, it could always be worse, and it probably will. It probably will get a little bit worse before it gets better.
They're for sure not going to let it just be easy, smooth sailing. We weren't just going to get. It could have been too easy to just have it get down to Joe Brady and Vrabel and Ben Johnson. That would have been just too Bears-like.
There's going to be a report on January 19th from Tom Pelissero saying, contract talks between Ben Johnson and the Bears are kind of falling apart right now, and then we're all going to lose our minds. That is what's going to happen. And then everyone's already going to have a coach
has me cheesing. Such a niche but accurate. That's just the Bears.
Tom Pelissero's been on the money with the Bears stuff. He's the person I've been watching for Bears stuff. Because Breer to me just sounds like they're just feeding him fucking information from Ben Johnson's teams. Because it was all, oh yeah, the Jags are real. The Jags are real. The Jags are real. And then I haven't heard shit about Ben Johnson since Balky.
Well, I don't blame him. He got that news and he said, yeah, he told his agent, you can tell him that I'll talk to him. Hopefully never again. Hopefully my next head coaching job's where I'm staying.
Thank you guys so much for watching. This has been the Bear Cave. We'll be live again at some point this week, maybe, or next week. I don't know. We're going to try to figure out our off-season schedule. And then also we're going to be doing more mocks pretty soon. And then probably a mock off-season would be fun. And obviously we'll
definitely do the mock off-season.
So have a great rest of your night.